The storm that night matched my mood, violent, unrelenting, and threatening to tear apart everything in its path. I stood on the cliff's edge, the rain soaking through my black dress, hair plastered against my face. 3 years to the day since Theron's death, and the pain still felt as fresh as the day they'd handed me a folded flag and mumbled condolences. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the churning ocean below. For a brief, terrifying moment, I wondered what it would feel like to step forward, to let gravity take over. "Hannah!" The voice cut through the storm's fury, deep and commanding. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Callum, Theron's older brother, my perpetual shadow since the funeral. "Get away from there." He was closer now, his voice tight with panic. "Hannah, please. Leave me alone, Callum." My words were swallowed by the wind, but I knew he heard them. He always heard everything, even the things I never said. Strong arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me backward with such force that we both tumbled onto the muddy ground. I fought against his grip, pushing against his chest. "Let go of me," I screamed, rain and tears mingled on my face. "Just let me be." "Never." His voice was a harsh whisper against my ear, his arms tightening. "I promised him I'd take care of you." "I don't need your promises." My fists pounded against his chest. "I don't need your guilt or your obligation." Callum caught my wrists, his grip firm but gentle. In the flash of lightning, I saw his face, so like Theron's yet entirely different. Where Theron had been sunshine and easy smiles, Callum was storm clouds and intensity. His dark eyes burned into mine. "This isn't about obligation," he said, his voice breaking. "It never was." I stopped struggling, frozen by the raw emotion in his eyes. For 3 years, he'd been there, fixing things around my house, checking on me weekly, becoming a constant I both resented and relied upon. I convinced myself it was just duty to his fallen brother, nothing more. "Then what is it about?" I challenged, my voice barely audible above the storm. Instead of answering, he pulled me to my feet, his hands gripping my shoulders as he searched my face. "You weren't just coming to look at the view, were you?" The accusation hung between us. I turned my face away. "Hannah!" My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "You don't get to leave. Not like this." "Why not?" I whispered. "What's left for me here?" His fingers tightened on my shoulders. "Me," he said simply. "I'm here." The next morning, sunlight streamed through unfamiliar curtains. I blinked, disoriented, before recognizing Callum's spare bedroom. After my breakdown at the cliff, he brought me to his house, refusing to leave me alone. I sat up, noticing the dry clothes I was wearing, an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants that had to be his. The events of the previous night crashed over me in waves of embarrassment and something else I couldn't name. The smell of coffee lured me to the kitchen where I found Callum at the stove, his back to me. He was making pancakes, his movements precise and efficient. I'd forgotten he could cook. Theron had been hopeless in the kitchen, always relying on takeout or my mediocre culinary skills. "You shouldn't have brought me here," I said, my voice still rough from crying. Callum didn't turn around. "Where else would I take you?" "Home." "So you could what, Hannah?" "Sit alone with your thoughts on the anniversary of his death." He flipped a pancake with more force than necessary. "Not happening." I moved to the coffee pot, needing something to do with my hands. "I've managed the past 2 anniversaries just fine." "Have you?" Now he turned, spatula in hand, eyes narrowed. Because standing on the edge of a cliff in a thunderstorm doesn't look like managing to me. I wasn't going to jump. Even to my ears, the denial sounded weak. Callum set down the spatula and crossed the kitchen in 2 strides. He stood before me, close enough that I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, smell the faint scent of his soap. "Don't lie to me," he said quietly. "Not about this." I looked away, unable to hold his gaze. "Fine. I don't know what I was going to do." His hand came up, fingers gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. The casual intimacy of the gesture startled me. In 3 years, he'd never touched me like that. "Theron wouldn't want this," he murmured. "He wouldn't want you to stop living." Anger flared, hot and sudden. I stepped back. "Don't tell me what Theron would want. You don't get to use him like that." "He was my brother for 30 years, Callum countered, frustration evident in his voice. I think I know what he'd want. Then why don't you move on? I challenged. Why are you still here, checking on his widow, fulfilling some misguided promise? Something shifted in his expression, a hardening, a resolve. You really don't know, do you? Know what? He turned back to the stove, removing the pan from the heat. When he faced me again, his expression was carefully controlled. Eat your breakfast, Hannah. Then we need to talk. An hour later, we sat on his back porch, mugs of fresh coffee in hand. The morning was bright and clear, as if the previous night's storm had never happened. Callum's house sat on the outskirts of town, overlooking rolling hills and farmland, so different from the ocean view condo I'd shared with Theron. I was in love with you first, Callum said without preamble. The coffee scalded my tongue as I inhaled sharply. What? He wasn't looking at me, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Before you met Theron, before he brought you home that Christmas, I saw you at the university library. You were shelving books, work-study, I guess. I came in every day for 2 weeks, trying to work up the courage to talk to you. My mind raced back 7 years, trying to place him. I'd worked at the university library my junior year, but I had no memory of Callum there. That's not possible, I said. I would have remembered you. A wry smile twisted his lips. No, you wouldn't. I looked different then. I hadn't started working construction yet, was about 30 pounds lighter, and wore glasses. He shrugged. Anyway, I never did get the courage to approach you. And then Theron brought you home for Christmas, so proud to introduce his new girlfriend. I set my mug down with trembling hands. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to understand. His eyes met mine, unflinching. This isn't about obligation or guilt. It's not even about Theron anymore. Don't, I whispered, rising from my chair. Please don't say it. Callum stood too, his height forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Why not? It's been 3 years, Hannah. 3 years of me watching you grieve, trying to give you space and time, while knowing every day that I'm his brother. I cut in. You're his brother, Callum. Yes. His voice was steady. And I'm also a man who has been in love with you for 7 years. I backed away, shaking my head. This is wrong. Is it? He didn't follow me, but his gaze held me in place. If Theron were here, I'd never have said a word. I'd have gone to my grave with these feelings. But he's not here, and you're alive, Hannah. We both are. So what? I'm supposed to just transfer my affections from one brother to another? Like it's that simple. Anger flashed in his eyes. Nothing about this has been simple. Nothing. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Theron's that it made my heart ache. I've respected your grief. I've kept my distance when all I wanted was to be close to you. I've watched you shut yourself away from everyone who cares about you. I didn't ask you to do any of that. No, you didn't have to ask. His voice rose for the first time. But what was I supposed to do? Walk away. Let you drown in your grief alone. The woman I love. He cut himself off, taking a deep breath. The woman my brother loved more than anything. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. I can't do this. I can't be what you want. I'm not asking you to be anything, he said, his voice gentle again. I'm just asking you to live, Hannah. And maybe someday to see me. Not as Theron's brother, but as me. Just Callum. I went home that afternoon, despite Callum's protests. I needed space, time to think away from his intense presence. The house felt emptier than ever, haunted not just by Theron's absence, but now by Callum's revelation. 4 days, I avoided his calls. He respected my silence but left voicemails, not pushing, just checking in. On the 5th day, a delivery arrived, books from the university library where we supposedly first crossed paths. Fiction I'd mentioned loving over the years, academic texts related to my abandoned graduate studies in literature. With them was a simple note. For when you're ready to start living again. Callum. It was manipulative, I decided, even as I opened the first novel. It was calculated to draw me out of my shell, to make me feel something other than grief. It worked. 2 weeks after the cliff incident, I drove to his house unannounced. He opened the door in work clothes, sawdust in his hair, surprise evident on his face. Hannah! Why didn't you ever say anything? I demanded, pushing past him into the house. All this time, all these years of you showing up, fixing things, checking on me. Why pretend it was all for Theron? Callum closed the door slowly. Would it have made a difference if you'd known? Yes. I would have told you to leave me alone. Maybe that's why, then. He leaned against the wall, watching me pace. Or maybe I was a coward. Maybe I was afraid that if I told you how I felt, you'd disappear from my life completely. I stopped pacing, suddenly exhausted. What do you want from me, Callum? Really? He considered me for a long moment. Honestly, everything. I want all of you, Hannah. Your mornings and nights, your smiles and tears, your past and future. The raw honesty in his voice made me tremble. But I'll settle for whatever you're willing to give, even if it's just friendship. I don't know if I can love anyone the way I loved him, I admitted. I'm not asking you to love me the way you loved him. Callum pushed off from the wall, closing the distance between us. Theron was sunshine. Easy. I know I'm not that. No, I agreed softly. You're not. All I'm asking is for a chance to show you who I am. And maybe for you to show me who you are now, not just Theron's widow, but Hannah. The woman who survived something terrible and is still standing. His words hit me like a physical blow. How long had it been since anyone had seen me as something other than an object of pity, a tragic figure defined by loss? I don't know where to start, I whispered. Callum's smile was cautious, hopeful. Dinner? Tomorrow night? Just us. Just you and me. Let's not name it anything yet. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Dinner led to lunch the following week, then to a museum exhibit I'd mentioned wanting to see. Slowly, carefully, we built something new, a friendship that acknowledged our complicated history without being consumed by it. I learned things about Callum I'd never known despite 7 years of family gatherings. How he dropped out of college to help support their parents when their father got sick. How he'd built his construction business from nothing. How he read voraciously, especially history and philosophy, subjects Theron had found boring. Most surprising was discovering how different the brothers truly were. Where Theron had been charming and social, Callum was thoughtful and introspective. Theron had lived in the moment, Callum planned for futures. Theron had made me laugh until my sides hurt. Callum made me think until my mind expanded. 3 months after that night on the cliff, I found myself at his house for dinner again. He'd cooked, as usual, something with rosemary and lemon that filled the kitchen with mouth-watering aromas. You never told me where you learned to cook, I remarked, watching him move confidently around the kitchen. Mom taught me the basics. The rest I learned after Dad passed away. Someone had to feed us, and Theron was hopeless. He smiled at the memory, no pain in his expression. I envied that, his ability to speak of Theron with fondness untainted by grief. For me, every memory still carried the sharp edge of loss. He really was terrible, I agreed. Remember that Thanksgiving when he insisted on making the turkey? Callum laughed. God, yes. Raw in the middle, burned on the outside. Even the dog wouldn't eat it. We shared the memory, and for the first time, I felt warmth instead of pain. It was a small miracle. After dinner, we sat on his back porch as had become our custom. The early autumn air carried a hint of coolness, and Callum draped a blanket around my shoulders without asking. I've been meaning to tell you, I said, watching his profile in the fading light. I'm going back to school. To finish my master's. He turned to me, genuine pleasure lighting his features. Hannah, that's fantastic. When did you decide? Last week. I spoke with my old advisor. She thinks I can pick up where I left off. I'm proud of you. His hand found mine on the armrest between our chairs, his fingers warm and strong as they closed around mine. The touch sent electricity up my arm, awakening feelings I'd believed long dead. I didn't pull away. I couldn't have done it without you, I admitted. Callum's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know. We sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell, his hand still holding mine. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely audible. I'm scared, Callum. Of going back to school. No. I turned to face him. Of this. Of us. Of what happens if I let myself care about you the way I think I could. He was very still, his breathing shallow. What are you afraid will happen? That I'll lose you too. The admission cost me, tearing from somewhere deep inside. That I'll love you and then you'll be gone, just like him. Callum released my hand only to kneel before my chair, his palms resting on my knees as he looked up at me. I can't promise I won't die, Hannah. No one can promise that. I know, I whispered, but I can promise that every day we have, whether it's 50 years or 5 minutes, I will never take for granted. Because loving you, even from a distance, has been the great privilege of my life. The words hung between us, honest and unadorned. And in that moment, I made a choice. I leaned forward, my hands framing his face. His eyes widened in surprise, then darkened with understanding as I brought my forehead to rest against his. I'm not ready, I breathed. Not for everything, but I'm ready to try. His hands came up to cover mine, warm and steady. That's all I'm asking for. As we sat there, foreheads touching, breathing each other's air, I realized something profound. Loving Callum wouldn't be a betrayal of Theron's memory. It would be an affirmation of what Theron had always wanted for both of us: happiness, family, connection. I wasn't just his brother's widow anymore. I was Hannah, scared but healing, grieving but growing, and for the first time in 3 years, allowing myself to imagine a future filled with something other than loss. And Callum, patient and steadfast, would be there whenever I was ready to fully embrace it, waiting with open arms and a heart that had claimed me as his from the very beginning.